All right, last video in this transformation series. In this video, we are going to write equations given graphs and some table of values. For all of our problems, we're using the same parent function. We're going to use the absolute value function. F of x equals the absolute value of x, and the parent function's graph looks like the very familiar V. All right, first problem. It looks to me like the absolute value has been shifted over to the left 1 unit. But let's just double check that because there's no units on our graph. So that would be 0 or 1, 0, negative 1, 0. So I'm just checking on my table of values. Yep, that's where that vertex is. And then this, so that's negative 1. And then this should be positive 1, so at 0 I should be at positive 1. So yes, each of these tick marks are 1 unit each. To shift the parent function to the left 1, a horizontal shift, I would need to go inside the absolute value bars. And then I'd have to do the opposite of what I think. So instead of subtracting 1, I'm going to add 1 to the x. So here's my transformed function. F of x equals the absolute value of x plus 1. There it is. Next one over on the right. Now I've gone in the other direction, and I'm assuming that this is still 1, 1, 1, and 1. So the vertex should be at 0, at 1, 0. Yep, it is. And then I have another point here at 0, 1. All right, so this is at positive 1, and this is at positive 1. So I have shifted it to the right. A horizontal shift, which means I need to go inside the function, inside the absolute value bars, and do the opposite. So instead of adding 1, I'm going to subtract 1. Next. Oh, I flipped, gone over the x-axis. So going over the x-axis, that implies what? Implies negating the y, negating the whole thing. So let me just look at everything else. I've got a 0, 0, 1. Oh, and notice something else. I'm definitely negating, so I know that I'm going to be doing this. F of x equals the negative of something. And then I've got my absolute value bars. But look at my table of values. Look at the table of values from before. So really, I've got the same, other than shifting it over, I've got the same values here, right? So if I plug in, I'm just going to check this, right? If I plug in 3, 3 minus 1 is 2. The opposite value of 2 is 2. So that's definitely working fine. But notice down here, I haven't shifted left or right, but yet I'm not getting the same numbers back. I'm plugging in 0 and getting 0 back, but look at 1. I plug in 1, and I get negative 2. So just think about that for a minute. If I start off with 1, so f of 1, what that means is that I have plugged 1 in for x, right? And then I've done something, and I want to end up with negative 2 for my answer. So that means that I have to do something in here, right? Either add or subtract, but I can't because adding or subtracting would shift it left or right. I have to do something out here to get it to be 2. And the only thing I can do, other than adding or subtracting, to change the number is to multiply. I must have to multiply this by 2. So I think that this is going to be my rule. But let's just double check. Yeah, I think there has been a vertical stretch, and that's why it's looking a little bit skinnier than otherwise we would have seen. Like, it looks a little more closed up than the ones from above. Let's just double check another pair here. Let's plug in negative 2. So negative 2, the absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. Positive 2 times a negative 2 is indeed a negative 4. So it seems to be working okay. Let's try one more. What about 3? So I plug in 3 for x. The absolute value of x, absolute value of 3 is 3. 3 times a negative 2, yep, negative 6. I am thinking this is a good rule. This one is the model that I'm looking for. Let's take a look at the next one, the one over, oh, it's our last one too. So this is looking a little bit more open, and I suspect I'm going to have to multiply or well, either by a 1 or by a 1/2 something to make this open up more. See how it's opening? So I'm going to have to put, I think, something outside my absolute value bars. It's not flipped in any direction as far as I can tell, so I'm thinking that I am not going to need a negative in front. But let's take a look and see here. I've definitely shifted up. I've shifted up 1, 2, so I'm probably going to add 2 to the outside. I haven't shifted left or right, so I think it's going to just be a plain old X on the inside. But then let's figure out what number should be going right here. What should I be multiplying by to make my graph open up? Let's pick a number set. Let's try this one, 2 and 4. So if I plug 4 in for my absolute value, I'm sorry, if I plug 2 in for my absolute value function, so the absolute value of 2 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. So that one seems okay. Well, maybe I'm fine. Let's try a different one. How about this one up here? Negative 2 and 4. So if I plug in a negative 2 plus 2 is 4. So that one seems okay. Well, maybe I don't have to do anything at all. Maybe it just looks open, more open, and I am going to be fine. Let's try one more. Let's try this one up here. Negative 3. So if I plug negative 3 in, negative 3 times, or the absolute value of negative 3 is a positive 3. Positive 3 plus 2 is 5. I don't need this at all. So I'm not going to need anything in front of my absolute value function. All I'm going to need to do is to add 2. So here's the answer. F of x equals the absolute value of x plus 2. Done. So you should try some of these on your own in the packet and let me know if you're having any questions. Have fun.